And a very good evening on a Thursday evening. Welcome to you wherever you are, whether you're in North America, in Europe, in the wider Caribbean, of course, if you are in Guyana. Hello to you if you're in Linden. If you're all the way on the quarantine, welcome to you. West Bobis, welcome. Those of you on the East Coast, Georgetown, West Coast, Demerara, and Essequibo. Welcome to Politics 101. This evening, we are going to continue our coverage of the issue in which the president has declared war on the Police Service Commission after the attempt by the government to influence what is going on in the commission, and that was thwarted by the commission itself, and then the court made a very important ruling earlier this week and forcing the government to show its hand that its real intent is to control the Police Service Commission. We have said on this program many times before that this government is about domination. Governments, by their very nature, like to take control of things. But part of the ideology of this government is political domination. And in our ethnic society, that amounts to ethnic domination. It wants to control the state, all arms of the state. It wants to control every facet of society. And the one institution or the group of institutions that they've had problems with, of course, is the armed forces and the security forces. Here is an attempt. As soon as they came back to office in August of last year, one of the first things they did was to begin tampering with the hierarchy of the police force. We saw them bring the army out of the barracks to put down legitimate protests in West Demerara. They are intent on controlling the armed forces and the security forces. Here we are tonight, facing yet another crisis in Guyana. Those of you who've been following media would know that Mr. Paul Slow, the chairman of the Police Service Commission, has been making the rounds. This week he was on CAMS TV. Yesterday morning I saw him on a couple of other programs. Well, he has not made it yet onto Politics 101, but we have his attorney at law, his lawyer, the lawyer for the commission here tonight. Mr. Selwyn Pieters has been on Politics 101 before, but now he's here for the full hour and a half. We are going to talk to him about the legal perspective and the legal implications of what we're seeing. And of course, you cannot talk about the legal without its linkage to the political. So we're going to get into some of that. But we're going to hear the perspective of the attorney for the Police Service Commission. Selwyn, welcome again to Politics 101.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Hines, and good evening to the viewers in Guyana and in the diaspora.
And Selwyn, I like my audience to become familiar with my guests. You operate partly out of Canada, where you practice. You obviously practice in Guyana, but tell us a little bit of you. Where in Guyana you originated?
Well,
from?
my parents, my mother's side of the family are, the noble clan from Bellodrum, and my father's side of the family are the Sanko Abram clan, so they're from Buxton and Nabakalis and those places. I was born in England, so I wasn't born in Guyana, and I spent some time in Guyana as a child. I also lived and studied in England, lived and studied in Canada, and lived and studied in Trinidad. So I'm a lawyer called to the bar of Trinidad, Guyana, and Ontario, Canada. So I can practice in three different continents. I can appear at the Privy Council or the Supreme Court in England. I can appear at the CCJ or Caribbean Court of Justice and all the local courts in Guyana. I can do likewise in Trinidad, and I can appear in any court in the Commonwealth Caribbean. I'm a twin. I have a twin brother. What else can I tell you about my background? I mean, I don't know. That's it for now.
That's
I mean,
it.
I think.
Selwyn, I've known you for about a decade now, which means that you've been coming back to Guyana. I think the first time I saw you actually practicing was in the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry in 2014. You might have appeared before that, but that's the first time I saw you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but let me ask you this too. Why? I mean, your parents are from here. You lived, studied in England. You moved to Canada. What called you home?
Well, I have an affinity to Guyana. Like I said, I'm considered Guyanese, even though I'm treated like a foreigner when I go there. But I am Guyanese. Like I said before, my father was buried there. My grandparents are all buried there. My great grandparents are buried there. And I still have a lot of relatives and friends in Guyana. We don't get to choose our place of birth, but we don't also, on the other hand, we should not sort of forego or cast by the wayside our heritage. My heritage is Guyanese, and I embrace it fully. And I think I used to go to Guyana before the pandemic more than most people. And Dr. Hines, the last time I heard you, you said that we're all going to be in Guyana for Emancipation Day. So I'm making my plans to be there this year for Emancipation Day, August 1st.
Yes, thank you. And I hope we get to do some stuff this year. We in Buxton are starting our planning this coming week a little bit late off the blocks. But my understanding is that most villages are going to do some things, certainly more than we were able to do last year when the pandemic was raging. I did mention that the first time I saw you in action was during the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry. Was that your maiden appearance in Guyana?
No, I actually I represented the families of three dead persons during the Linden Commission of Inquiry in 2012. Myself and Nigel Hughes were co-counsel in that matter. And, I was doing a lot of other work in Guyana in the background, a lot of other legal work in the background. But the Linden Commission of Inquiry was my first major appearance in Guyana. And then that was followed by the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry. But the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry was important to me because my father and Dr. Walter Rodney were very good friends, and my father is one of the people that was mentioned in Dr. Walter Rodney's book, Grounded with My Brothers. My father was also the first General Secretary of the People's National Congress. So the connection with both sides went very deep with Dr. Walter Rodney and at Fort Burnham. Yeah.
Yes, there you have it. Early. Tell us your father's name for the youngsters who in the audience who wouldn't know was the first General Secretary of the PNC.
Well, my father's name is Bertram, Bertrand, Aaron, Aaran, Abrams, Abrams. He was also very close with UC Quayana, and UC Quayana still speaks very fondly of him to this day.
Yes, 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 because UC Quina took over from him as General Secretary of the PNC. He was the first General Secretary, and Quina took over from him, and then Hamilton Green took over from Quina. The early general secretaries of the People's National Congress. Um, Selwyn, let's get to the matter at hand. The audience, I suppose, is familiar with what has been taking place in and out of the courts in relation to the Police Service Commission. But for the purposes of our discussion tonight, can you give us a let's get to the matter of what has been transpiring? Take us from the beginning and bring us forward.
Well, since the PPP came into power, there were attempts to control the instruments of state, and the instruments of state also included the armed forces. So my understanding is one of the first orders of business when the PPP came into power in August of 2020 is that police officers were moved, and there were directions as to people to be placed into certain positions. A deputy commissioner of police, Mr. Paul Williams, was on leave, and when his leave was over and he reported to work, he was sent to the COVID-19 task force. The assistant commissioner of police, Royston Andrews Jr., who was in charge of the public relations department and a sworn police officer with decades of experience and advanced degrees, he was removed as well. And civilians were put into the public relations department. Mr. Kareem Bash was moved to Soko, and there was a lot of other movement of officers who the government thought was favorable to the PPP in key positions, key command positions of the force. Now, I should say that is, it's really unusual, and it's not in keeping with, keeping the law enforcement body independent of executive state control.
So that was the background, and then we had this case brought by Mr. Brutus and others. They were not promoted by the Police Service Commission because there were allegations against them or pending cases against them, and they went to the court. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, there was something that started in September of 2020. The president met with Paul Slow, who was the chairman of the Police Service Commission, and there's nothing untoward with the president meeting with a service commission chairman or the chief justice assuming power. You would think that the regular courtesies would be exchanged, and there'd be discussion about the government's priorities, etc. So there's nothing untoward in that respect, and getting to know you, sort of. But what was strange in this case is that right off the bat at the first meeting, the president spoke of who he wanted to be promoted to assistant commissioners, according to Mr. Slow's evidence. Mr. Slow sort of broke down for the president the process of highlighted the process that that is embarked upon by the commission when they're promoting officers. Then you had the incident with the assistant commissioner Thomas, who was the head of the Presidential Guard, writing directly to the Police Service Commission recommending officers for promotion, including Sergeant McPherson, and had to be upbraided by Mr. Slow And there's a fact there, the evidence is there for that, because there's a letter that was written by Mr. Thomas, and there's Mr. Slow's response. The president called Mr. Slow the very night that he upbraided Mr. Thomas, telling him to go easy on Mr. Thomas, that he had directed Mr. Thomas to write to Mr. Slow. There were further calls that Mr. Orfinali, the president of Guyana, made to Mr. Slow, particularly on December 24th of 2020, when someone from the commission leaked the promotion list, or the list that was being considered for release on December 31st of 2020. Someone in the commission, and we know who it is, because the list is only seen by the 5 commissioners and the secretary to the commission. So we know who it is that leaked that list, and leaked the list of Brutus. Brutus actually affirmed in his affidavit that the list was leaked to him, and it was leaked to the political hierarchy. So you had a number of things going on. Then you had all these contrived criminal wrongdoings being alleged against some of the officers on the list: Cooper, Azor, Simon. You had the president calling Mr. Slow, speaking about his people and wanting his people to be on the list as well, according to Mr. Slow's evidence. You had the Minister of Home Affairs intervening as well, writing to the Police Service Commission, saying that criminal investigation should be launched into a number of officers on that list. So the circumstantial evidence at that point was quite clear that the political hierarchy of the state and several officers in the Guyana Police Force were in cahoots, supported by someone who was employed by the Police Service Commission. With that said, it followed with letters being sent to Cooper, Simon, and the other person that was up for the assistant commissioner post. So the 3 letters were sent to them by Brutus, informing them that.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you, Selwyn, at the time when it became known that it had spoken to Mr. Infant work of the commission, many people raised the question of whether he acted on the what's your take on that?
Well, the president has no right or no legal basis to call the chairman of the Police Service Commission and to dictate to the commission who should be promoted, who shouldn't be promoted. The same goes for the minister.
You seem to be having some technical.
Sorry, you're not hearing me, Dr. Hines?
Can I'm hearing you? Hearing you now. You said that the president should not be speaking directly to the commissioners trying to influence their work. Can the president be taken to court for that?
The president could be he could be impeached for that. A motion could be taken to Parliament because he's bound. He's a creature. He's a servant of the Constitution. He's subordinate to the Constitution. So where the president violates the Constitution in the manner in which he did in this case, the president's violation of the Constitution was pretty serious, pretty grave in this case. And quite frankly, the commission, the Police Service Commission, is right to stand up to the president. If the Police Service Commission had bowed to the unconstitutional and sort of dictatorial, arbitrary, capricious, and unlawful actions of the president, it would have set a bad precedent for other service commissions and even the judiciary. The president isn't allowed to act that way. And Dr. Orfanelli is a friend of mine. Let me put that out there. Dr. Orfanelli is somebody who myself and him have a lot of friends in common, and we speak to each other informally from time to time. I can pick up the phone and call Dr. Ali, and he picks up the phone and calls me, but he's calling me as Citizen Selwyn. He doesn't call me in an official capacity. The relationship with him and Paul Slow are quite different. And so, the sort of things that went on, even to the latest event where he suspended the Police Service Commission, knowing fully well that he cannot suspend the Police Service Commission unless certain condition precedent are met, certainly puts him on bad constitutional footing. And I've sent a letter to him setting out in detail why his actions were wrong. Now the Attorney General says, oh, well, the president is an absolute authority, and only he could rescind that suspension, or they go to court. But no, that's not what the law is. The law is you don't follow an unconstitutional directive or an unlawful order, even from a president of a country, right? You don't follow an unconstitutional order or directive. And so my advice was to the commission that they're not suspended. He's acting unlawfully, and you don't have to follow an unlawful act. You carry on as it is. So the commission is pursuing its duties as it should under the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. So it made its promotion and released that list shortly after the Chief Justice ruling on the 28th of June. And I will be writing to the Secretary of the Police Service Commission in the morning. And I will also be writing to the Commissioner of Police, because I heard that there was a letter sent to the quartermaster store not to issue the officers with their new badge of ranks. We must be clear about something. We must be very clear, irrespective of the advice that the president is getting, however poor it is. The Constitution is clear that only one body does promotions and discipline from the rank of inspector to assistant commissioner, and that is the Police Service Commission. Unless and until, and it cannot happen in this case, the president cannot undo his mistakes. So the president cannot undo his mistakes with the Police Service Commission here. So the commission is going to continue its work until its term ends on August 9th. But the Constitution is clear that they have
August 9th, yes.
Yes, they have the authority to discipline and to promote. And nothing that Mr. Nandalal says, and Mr. Nandalal is somebody who I can pick up the phone and call, and he can pick up the phone and call me, because we're colleagues, we're lawyer colleagues. And so lawyers tend to have a cordial relationship where they can pick up the phone and call each other and have frank discussions. But with due respect, I completely disagree with Mr. Nandlal, and he knows, because he was involved in the Duncan case. Mr. Nandlal knows what the law is. Mr. Nandlal knows how the law is applied, and he cannot give the president advice to violate the Constitution. That is why Rudy Giuliani lost his license in New York. Rudy Giuliani was giving the president of the United States bad advice, embarking on frivolous lawsuits in respect to the election in the United States. And the New York Bar Association or organization took action against Rudy Giuliani to show him that, the law, the rule of law applies. And regardless of whether you represent the highest office holder in the land, you're bound to conduct yourself within the confines of the law. And so Mr. Nandlal has to understand, because he called Mr. Slow and the rest of them anarchists, which is quite offensive. You're calling people anarchists when you're giving the president advice that is totally contrary to the law. That certainly and puts the president at risk, because quite frankly, the president, a motion could be brought to impeach the president in parliament, regardless of whether the motion is successful or not, is beside the point. But Article 94 of the Constitution provides for some accountability where the president violates the Constitution. And there's a discussion. Mr. Jordan, the former finance minister, this morning spoke about the weakness of the opposition. I've spoken about the weakness of the opposition because, quite frankly, there are checks and balances. And part of the checks and balances is a strong opposition to hold the government accountable. And in this particular situation, there is very, very strong grounds to hold the government accountable. And it shouldn't be one lawyer who the commission relies upon to make sure that the Constitution is upheld, especially where the president's actions certainly states a prima facie case of a breach of Section 94 of the Constitution, misconduct in public office, and breaching of the Constitution.
What are some of the things the opposition can do, Selwyn? What are some of the things the opposition can do in this regard?
One of the things that they could do is they could bring a motion before the parliament to have this matter dealt with, of the president's violation of the Constitution and his misconduct in public office. Number two, certainly they have voices and they could be speaking out. No, Dr. Hines, I don't know if it's your computer that has some problems. I can't hear you now. Well, Dr. Hines is off. It seems like he's disconnected, so I'm going to continue.
Are we on? Are you?
Well, I'm on, Dr. Hines.
Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me, Selwyn?
Yes, I am. I am hearing you.
It's raining very heavily here, and it seems to be interfering with the feed. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am hearing you very well.
You're hearing me?
Yes, I am.
Let's talk a little bit about. Yes, let's talk a little bit about the case that was brought by Mr. Brutus et al. And the court ruled this week on that case, and the Chief Justice had some really who brought that matter before us. Help us to put in perspective the ruling of the Chief Justice.
Well, the ruling of the Chief Justice was quite damning for Mr. Brutus, actually. The Chief Justice spoke about his actions as being very strange. It spoke of his actions being very self-serving. She spoke of him being in a conflict of interest. And she also spoke about him trying to get the upper hand on his rivals by sending them those letters in a manner that was totally inappropriate, and that the allegations that were made against the officers were unsubstantiated. So that is dealing with Mr. Brutus personally, and if he was in any other country, he would have been suspended immediately from the Guyana Police Force and removed from that position of acting Deputy Commissioner of Administration, because how can you put your personal interest against above the interests of the Guyana Police Force and the country, which is what he did, acted in a conflict of interest for self-serving reasons. That's a damning indictment from the Supreme Court, particularly the Chief Justice. The ruling also dealt with 5 different issues. And the most important was a legitimate expectation. And the court said no one has a legitimate expectation to be promoted, and the list that was sent by the commissioner is simply a recommendation to the commission. The commissioner can't feather the commission's discretion by dictating who's to be promoted. They make those decisions in their own judgment. And so that was something else. And then the court said that, if it makes a ruling that persons who are subject to disciplinary action must be promoted, it would set a dangerous precedent, not only for service commissions generally, but in employment law. In employment law, there is a principle that if you're subject to disciplinary action, you're precluded from being promoted until those disciplinary actions are spent or disposed of. Let's see what else the ruling.
And you're listening to Mr. Selwyn Pieters. You're listening to Mr. Selwyn Pieters, the attorney for the Police Service Commission, walking us through the legal ramifications and implications of what is going on there between the executive branch, in particular the president and the attorney general, and the Police Service Commission. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to continue to talk to Mr. Pieters about this clash that has been thrown down by the attorney general. The president will not respect the recommendations of the Police Service Commission.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.
And welcome back to Politics 101. Tonight we're talking with Selwyn Pieters, the attorney for the Police Service Commission. We're talking about that matter and all the implications. Let me just recognize Ernest Elliott, who is in the audience, longtime PNC member of parliament and activist, who says that he is very good friends with Selwyn's father. Of course, Selwyn told us that he was the first general secretary of the PNC. Ernest says that they were very good friends, his partner. I see Lawrence Houston in the audience, longtime diplomat and activist of the PNC, and my friend Alston Williams from Arizona is also in the audience. Lynette asking why I was not at the funeral for Lawrence Dougal, my countryman from Buxton, who passed away in Maryland. I'm in Guyana, Lynette, and so I couldn't make it to Maryland. But the Dugans are an institution in Buxton, and they migrated to the Washington D.C. area and continue to give good services there. My condolences to the family on the passing of Lawrence, who is better known or more known as Fishy. Lawrence Fishy Dougal. Those of you in the audience who happen to know him can reach out to the relatives. So I wasn't able to make the funeral, Lynette, because I'm in Guyana. The Attorney General has said that the president will not honor the recommendations made by the Police Service Commission. Is that unconstitutional on their part?
Yeah, that's illegal and that's unconstitutional. I mean, Mr. Nandal is free to give the president whatever advice he wishes, but like I said, Mr. Nandal is an attorney at law, and Mr. Nandal knows the law, and he ought to know better. Like I said before, Dr. Mohammed Orphan Ali is not a monarch. He doesn't have absolute power. That's why the Constitution has Section 94 in it to constrain his actions and to bring him before the Parliament if he misconducts himself or he violates the Constitution. And I haven't spoken to the president about this matter directly because I felt it wasn't going to be appropriate to call him, but I wrote him a very detailed letter setting out the Constitution, the law of the land, how the law is applied, how he has violated the Constitution, and what he can do if he disagrees with my opinion. And I haven't received a response from the president to my letter. Hopefully he will respond and very soon. But the thing about it is sending out a press release doesn't cut it. As Mr. Nanda did send out a press release and going on his program on Tuesday on Facebook doesn't cut it where you're dealing with a constitutional crisis of the president's own making. The fact that Mr. Slow and the 4 other commissioners' term ends in August doesn't end this issue, because you have 132 officers who are promoted, and you have those officers now in a state of uncertainty whether they follow the illegal dictate of the executive or whether they follow the directions of the constitutional body that is empowered to promote them. And we would say that those officers should proudly wear their new badge of rank and wear their new badge of rank with honor. The finance secretary and the police finance will have to pay them retroactively from the 1st of January 2021 for their promotion, and some of their promotions go all the way back to 2020 retroactivity, so they will have to be paid for the time that has elapsed. And so all the talk about from the executive that, we're not going to honor this and we're not going to honor that. You don't have a notwithstanding clause in Guyana that can override that decision. You see, in Canada, we have Section 33 of the Constitution for certain aspects of law, legislation, and policy, where the premiers can override a court order or any other order if they don't agree with it. And we just had that here in Ontario, but Guyana doesn't have that legislative provision in the Constitution where the president can override a decision of a constitutional service commission or a court. And so regardless of the noise that has been made, I'm confident that the president must obey the law. And I know, Dr. Hines, I need to address this because, some people are not comfortable with the concept of neutrality or picking a side. So I suspect some people would have liked to say, well, Selwyn Pieters is solid PNC, or Selwyn Pieters is solid APNU, or Selwyn Pieters is solid PPP. Well, look, I have friends across the political spectrum. I had a great relationship with Joseph Harmon, the president, the former president, David Granger, who has sent for me on more than one occasions to do work in Guyana. I have a very good relationship with Dr. Barrett Jagdeo. I have a very good relationship with Mohammed Orfanali. And I've butted heads with David Granger. As a matter of fact, me and David Granger fell out in some way, and me and Joseph Harmon fell out in some way because they did something that was totally uncalled for and unnecessary. And I felt that they were falling into the same trap as the PPP when they were in power. And I wrote to the president and told him, even though I got work from them afterwards because I appeared in the CCJ. The relationship was never the same because they didn't like the fact that I was able to tell them as it is and tell them because, they were talking to me during the Walter Rodney inquiry and pointing out things that were offensive to them. So how do you do stuff that you found offensive when you're in the opposition, when you get into power? And it's the same thing we have here with the PPP, this duplicity. This duplicity makes me very skeptical of politicians because it's the same thing. When Anna Nandalal was representing Carver Duncan, Anna Nandalal made the same arguments that I'm positing here. And that's why I sent his letter of October 16, 2016 to the president. Because you can't be speaking out of both sides of your mouth. I know the law evolves and changes, but there's nothing that has changed in the Constitution between 2016 and 2021 that allows Dr. Mohammed Orfanali to do what he did. And I say that with the greatest degree of respect. I mean, Dr. Ali, I supported them during the election shenanigans because I felt that they were on firm footing and the court decisions bear that out. And in the same way I felt that way then, I feel right now they're on very shaky. Actually, they don't have any footing to stand on. And in the same way that how I spoke out then, I'm speaking out now. And that is what you call integrity. That is what you call somebody who can't be bought or sold. That is what you call somebody who is an independent thinker and somebody who is intent on the rule of law being followed, particularly the Constitution. I know that was a mouthful, Dr. Hines. Denise Gittens called me a soup drinker. I think it's me she's calling a soup drinker. And Mr. Smith says, well, that is the nature of the politicians.
Let's get back to that. Let's get back to that letter that you sent to the president. Walk us through what you told him in that letter.
Well, the first thing I wrote him is I said, well, you've been advised by the Prime Minister, the Honorable Mark Anthony Phillips, to initiate an investigation into the question of the Commission members' removal from office and to suspend them from performing the functions of the office with immediate effect pending those investigations. Then I also told them that you've accepted the Prime Minister's advice and you wrote that you shall establish a tribunal in the manner prescribed by Article 225, inquire and report on the matter of the proposed removal, and that the members of the Commission are hereby suspended with immediate effect from performing the functions of the office, pending the establishment of the aforementioned tribunal. Then I went back to a comment that the president made on News Source. He was quoted as saying that, and I quote, "I'm following the constitutional process that is outlined in dealing with these matters, and that's all I'm doing. I have no intention of breaching the constitutional process. There is a constitutional process in which to deal with these allegations and have been made against members of the commission, and that is what has been triggered, nothing more than that. So I told the president that, for reasons that follow, I've advised members of the commission that the purported suspensions asserted by Your Excellency in these letters are manifestly ultra vires, Section 225 of the Constitution, unlawful, illegal, premature, and of no legal force, import, or effect. And then I walked him through the relevant provisions of Article.
Why was the president not able to? Well,
because this is what it says. Article 225, subsection 6 says this. If the question of removing the officer from the office has been referred to a tribunal under this article, the president acting in accordance with the advice of the prescribed authority may suspend the officer from performing the functions of his office, and any such suspension may at any time be revoked by the president acting in accordance with such advice as aforesaid, and shall in any case cease to have any effect if the tribunal recommends to the president that the officer should not be removed from office. So in accordance with 225 subsection 6, the president in certain circumstances can suspend members of the commission, but he can only do so with the prescribed advice or with the advice of the prescribed authority, and only if the question of removal has been referred to a tribunal. Now, in this case, there's two different prescribed authorities. So the Prime Minister is a prescribed authority in respect to the chairman of the commission, Mr. Paul Slow. And the chairman is the prescribed authority in respect to the other members. So Article 210, subsection 3 of the Constitution says this. The provision of Article 225, which relates to the removal from office, shall apply to the office of an appointed member of the Police Service Commission. In the case of an appointed member other than the chairman, the prescribed authority for the purposes of paragraph 4 of the said article shall be the Prime Minister or the chairman. And for the purpose of paragraph 6, which is the paragraph we just dealt with, that article shall be the chairman. In case of the chairman, the prescribed authority for that purpose of paragraph 4 and 6 of Article 225 shall be the president. So the president could not suspend the members because the question of removal from office had not been referred to a tribunal. There's no such tribunal established. And second, for all the members other than the chairman, he had not acted in accordance with the advice of the prescribed authority with respect to suspensions.
So why did they not set up a tribunal?
Because they could not. Article 225 dictated the process for appointing a tribunal to inquire into the process or proposed removal from office, and the paragraph required the president to act in accordance with the advice of the Judicial Service Commission in appointing a tribunal, which shall consist of a chairman and no less than 2 other members selected by the Judicial Service Commission from among persons who hold or have held office as a judge. Okay, and so at present there's
so
no.
It is this Police Service Commission. Selwyn?
Yes, I'm listening to you.
It is the Police Service Commission who must advise the president to set up a tribunal.
The Judicial Service Commission. The Judicial Service
Commission.
Yes. And
is there a Judicial Service Commission in place?
There's no Judicial Service Commission. The last Judicial Service Commission's mandate came to an end in 2017.
And why has there not been a new Judicial Service Commission?
I mean, it's the problem between the opposition and the president. So it's probably going to be the same problem that remains. The president and the leader of the opposition are key to those appointments: Judicial Service Commission, judges, commissioner of police, Chancellor of the Judiciary, Chief Justice. And I had a debate with former President Jagdeo about that at the time when he was leader of the opposition, because I felt that, we've had decades of acting Chief Justices and acting Chancellors of the Judiciary without permanency, and that is totally antithetical to democracy, where these leaders should come together for the betterment of the country. And so they have to agree on who the members of the Judicial Service Commission are, and without an agreement, there could be no Judicial Service Commission. So that Judicial Service Commission has been held up since 2017.
So in the absence of a recommendation from the Judicial Service Commission, it seems what you're saying is that the president has no foot to stand on, no legal foot to stand on.
He has no legal legs to stand on, and he knows it. He knows it, and Anand Nandla knows it. The law is pellucidly clear. The law is very, very clear.
Very clear. And if he continues to defy the recommendations of the Police Service Commission, what happens next?
Well, there's any number of things that can happen. I mentioned Section 9 and Section 94 process under the Constitution. The police officers so aggrieved can go back to court as well, right? They can go back to court, and they can get a judge to make a ruling in respect to whether the government's actions in terms of not paying them and not releasing their badge of rank is legal or valid. And we already know how the court is going to go on that.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.
Is Mr. Pieters still with us? Thank you and welcome back to Politics 101. We're having some difficulty tonight. It's raining heavy where I am, and it seems to be interfering with the feed. Mr. Pieters, are you there?
Yes, I am, Dr. Hines.
We seem to have lost.
No,
Mr.
you haven't lost me. I'm right here. Let me see.
Mr. Operator?
No,
Is
I'm
Mr.
still
Pieters
on.
there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Yes, Selwyn, let's talk about some general issues. there's been a lot of pushback from the opposition constituents on the court, in particular the office of the Chief Justice. Given the cases that we have had since the no confidence vote to the present, let me ask you two things. One, is the number are the number of cases that are going before the court stretching the court and exposing the inability of the court to deal with some of these very complex political matters?
Well, let me say this about the Chief Justice. I mean, the Chief Justice rulings, you know,
Are
in
you?
the, hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying the Chief Justice rulings that went all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, those judgments were all upheld. So the Chief Justice wrote a ruling in Sharon Das case, and that judgment was upheld by the Caribbean Court of Justice. She's rendered a number of rulings that have been upheld. I mean, I understand that people are saying that the Chief Justice is biased and that she rules in a certain way, but the Chief Justice, I think, for the most part, she is very careful. She's very thorough, and I have a lot of respect for Justice George and her judgments. Her judgments are well thought out, regardless of what some people have to say about them. I think they're well thought out. She's not one of the political judges. Maybe that's why she's still in an acting position and not confirmed yet to her Chief Justice position. But she's not a political judge. She rules according to the evidence and the law, and that's why Brutus lost so badly. In terms of the number of matters that are reaching the court, yes, we haven't had a Judicial Service Commission since 2017, so we haven't had new judges appointed to the Court of Appeal, nor have we had new judges appointed to the Supreme Court of the Judiciary. So there is a shortage of judges, and the bench is pretty tight. And so with all these cases, they are stretching the ability of the courts to deal with other matters, because the court have been dealing with these matters, these political matters that come before it, very expeditiously. I mean, Brutus brought a judicial review application in December, and it was disposed of in 6 months, June. Even in Canada, that's a feat. The other cases, the case that Ganes Mayapal brought, that matter is going to be ruled on in September on the whole of the application, but arguments have already been heard, and the decision is reserved. The election petitions, they've all been heard, and at least one has been disposed of. So I mean, the court has been moving with alacrity in respect to the political matters. I can't say that the court hasn't been moving very swiftly with these matters. They have been. The problem that you have in Guyana is that people, and not only people, a recent survey showed that 54% of the population does not have confidence in the judiciary in Guyana. And so that presents a problem for the judges in Guyana and the rule of law, because when they render a judgment, I mean, half of the population is going to not have faith in that judgment and not believe in the legitimacy of that judgment. You see, so that's a problem in Guyana. No, I got a hater on
Yes,
there.
Mr. Peters, are you there?
Yes, and I got a hater, Mr. Garfield Amos.
Okay.
Has a lot of things to say, but let me say this to Garfield Amos: you're not responsible for my upkeep or my education or my skills and knowledge. So all the libelous and defamatory trash that you're putting on this Facebook page is falling on deaf ears as far as I'm concerned. Keep at it.
Yeah, Selwyn, let me ask you this. Given all that has been happening in relation to the court and given the rulings in our very divided polity, do we run the risk of half of the population losing confidence in the judicial system?
Yes, half of the population has indeed lost confidence in the judicial system. I just mentioned a paper that was released
Hello?
on confidence. Yes, hello. I'm speaking, Dr. Hines. You're not being able to hear me. Anyway, I was saying that already 54% of the population.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
54% of the population already has no confidence in the
Yes, I am
judiciary.
hearing
So,
you.
indeed, a lot of people do not have confidence in the judiciary, and that's very bad. And part of the loss of confidence in the judiciary could be in the criminal justice system, where the police work is very sloppy, where instead of doing proper investigations, they bring forced confessions to the court, and the cases are thrown out by juries. So very serious cases. In very serious cases, people walk, including the Williams case with the massacres, because the police, instead of doing careful investigative work, they're relying on confessions beaten out of people, or taken in a manner that brings the administration of justice into disrepute.
Yes. We have the development with the case with the Henry boys and Irish, who we've had some arrests. Mr. Attorney Nigel Hughes at a press conference today. Have you been following the development in that case?
Yes, I have been following the developments in that case, and I did watch the press conference today. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate how the police are operating in Guyana, but it's not unexpected, given that the police would bring fake charges against their own police service commissioners to get their way in promotions, and given that they would bring fake charges against other senior officers and advise other senior officers that they're being investigated for offenses that don't even exist in law. And as the Supreme Court Chief Justice said, were unsubstantiated. So, they've charged two people with killing they've charged three persons with killing the Henry boys. And those people, we know they're not involved in the killing of the Henry boys. One of them, or both, two of them were junkies and were from way up the quarantine, had nothing to do with the area where the Henry boys live. Now they've charged four persons in the killing of Mr. Singh. And Mr. Hughes raised some serious concerns with respect to that, because, at least two of the persons they arrested had solid alibis. One of them was with his mother watching an autopsy being conducted, or a postmortem examination. And the other one was with other people to whom that could also be verified. So, it's going to be the only problem with charging the wrong people, is that these people get tied up in a system for years before they're vindicated, and we saw that yesterday with a very famous figure. So there's going to be no justice in the Henry boys case. There's going to be no justice in the Singh case, and all that goes to the administration of criminal justice in Guyana, and it goes to the confidence of the lack thereof that people have and will continue to have in our system.
Yes. Selwyn, we will be really having a bad time with our internet connection this evening. Is there Did you hear me there, Selwyn?
No, I didn't.
Yes, Selwyn, I was asking if there were any closing remarks you would like to leave our audience with.
Yes, you know, the situation, with changes, Guyana is a democratic country, and with changes in government, we basically should expect, governments to act lawfully, governments to act in accordance with the Constitution. We should expect governments to respect the constitutional institutions of state. We should expect governments to respect the rule of law. And, in cases where the government is not respecting the rule of law, respecting the Constitution, there's resort. A citizen doesn't have to obey a unconstitutional order, number one. So they shouldn't obey any unconstitutional orders that the president or anybody else give. I say so. That's the rule of law. You don't obey an unconstitutional order or unconstitutional directive or a directive that has no basis in law. Number two, they could resort to the courts and have the courts adjudicate on these matters. And number three, they can the opposition can invoke Section 94 of the Constitution. But let me say this as well: Guyana is a small country. It has less than 1 million people. It's been going through crisis after crisis. I'm not sure how the population could sustain itself, on a strong footing or equilibrium where we have natural disasters with the flooding, we have the COVID-19 pandemic, we had the lengthy elections issue, and now we have issues where the executive is not following the Constitution in terms of removing people from office. It's not, a lot of people have not taken on the government for their unconstitutional actions. For example, the director of prisons could have taken on the government when they removed him from his position as director of prisons and sent him to the Ministry of Home Affairs as to a non-existent position as assistant coordinator for people of trafficking, persons in trafficking. They've moved the permanent secretary from the Ministry of Home Affairs and have her in an office and have not given her any task or a job description. So she just goes into office and does nothing. They did the same thing to this Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Paul Williams, and a whole host of people, and in a small country where the brain trust is limited, doing that, I'm not sure how it takes Guyana forward, but we'll have to see how this all ends. But the opposition will have to be stronger. The opposition has to be united. Right now, the opposition is not strong. The opposition is not united. The opposition isn't singing from the same hymn book. And the government, as it is certainly exploiting that.
Thank you, Selwyn. I asked for your closing statement. I have to ask you this. Is there not a relationship between what this government is doing and the manner in which the government was installed in office last year, in your estimation?
I don't know. I mean, the situation that went on from March to August, it it was interesting. I'm not sure if the dust has settled on that. It's for something for you historians to sort of ponder and pronounce on. It's not my job or role as a lawyer to pronounce on that. I'm listening to what you have to say and what Dr. Henry Jeffrey and so on, the historians have to say about this. But whatever is I mean the government was certainly, President Granger demitted office to make way for this new government when the chairman of the election commission wrote on August 2nd, and President Ali was sworn in on the same day. So I don't know. I don't want to pronounce on the manner in which the government was installed or inaugurated or whatever term people want to use for how this government came into power. But the elections were pretty. The elections and the aftermath has certainly left an indelible negative effect on the psyche of Guyanese from all sides of the political divide, and certainly we see that even with my appearance on this program tonight. We've had some people who were very exercised and some people who were very active and engaged, simply because of my position as a neutral observer and my comments that were made during the election. So I'm not going to comment directly on that, Dr. Hines.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Selwyn, for coming on tonight and shedding some light on this matter. I'm sure this is not the end of it, because we are at an impasse now. We wait and see what plays out. Your prediction is that at some point the executive will come to grips with the fact that they're not standing on strong ground. We shall see. But thank you, matter drags on, as I rather suspect it would. Thank you very much, Selwyn Pieters. And thank you to the audience for being with us tonight. It's been a little rough given the unstable nature of the internet where I am. We hope that we will be able to get that straightened out before our next program. So again, thank you very much for tuning in to yet another edition of Politics 101. And I'll see you all next Tuesday for another edition of Politics 101.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.